everybody. Welcome to the Post Political Podcast. I'm the host, Derek Britton, and I am very excited about this week. I have a wonderful guest on. I'm going to introduce her in a second. First up, let's get to the promos. So we have first up the Vermin Supreme Institute. Our purpose is to inspire social evolution through the disruption of authoritarianism, to promote compassionate activism, and to spread the knowledge of redacted history. Through the use of humor, direct action, and mutual aid, we uplift the disaffected, the disenfranchised, and the disempowered. I want to again, this is probably the last time I'll mention this, but I wanted to thank everyone again for the who contributed time or money or goods to the Love and Action fundraiser. We were able to deliver 75 sets of survival gear to unhomed individuals up in Reno, Nevada, and then later handed out kind of the rest at the Fallon Soup Kitchen. So thank you everyone for helping out and supporting the Vermin Supreme Institute. Next up, we have Brewed Coffee. So if you're in Lexington, Kentucky, check out Brewed Coffee and Beer Drinkery. You can also check out my affiliate link. That'll be in the comments after the show. You can buy mugs, shirts, hats, or masks, or whatever, tote bags, whatever you're looking for, and help support the show. So lastly, we have the two promos that we're doing through the shop. First up, we have the Be Gay Do Crime shirts and hats. So these are to help support the Trans Resource Network of Louisiana. They help out with trans and gender nonconforming folks down in New Orleans with helping get them to surgeries or housing or many different things. They're a mutual aid group down in Louisiana, a great group. You can either buy one of the shirts or hats or directly donate with a PayPal link. And then lastly, we have the Bridge Kids Give Back fundraiser. So Bridge Kids Give Back is a group committed to feeding, clothing, and uplifting one unhoused community at a time. They're here local in Massachusetts. I had Nancy on the show actually about a couple months ago. So if you would like to buy either a tote bag or shirt, 100% of the proceeds will go to the Bridge Kids Give Back group, or you can donate directly to the PayPal group, PayPal link at the bottom. And I'll put all those links and stuff in the comments so that folks can see them after the show. So now we have the introduction. So Kat Murti is a libertarian feminist and activist. Close to 2 decades of libertarian movement experience. She's a co-founder and executive director of the Feminists for Liberty group, which is a grassroots group dedicated to promoting libertarian feminist ideals and voices. Kat grew up in North Texas and South Indiana, earned a political science degree at the University of California, Berkeley, and now lives in Washington, D.C. area. I will post her social links in the comments after the show, and also the links to Feminists for Liberty. Let's bring in Kat. How's it going?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We talked a little bit before the show, but I really appreciate and I'm a fan of the Feminists for Liberty group. A lot of the content that you put out, video content, the forums, the posts and stuff, I consume a lot of it. So I'm a big fan. This is great.
Thank you so much. And let me just say, I loved your intro music. My little punk riot girl heart went all for it. So
that's wonderful. We have some access to be able to get some of those, clips and stuff. And I literally searched like punk intro music. That was my my clip. So no, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, it was fun to put together and stuff for the show, and it's been good so far. But I wanted to kick things off with hearing a little bit about how you got to the third party and becoming a libertarian and stuff, and kind of what was your journey. I know it's kind of different for everyone. So
yeah, definitely. So I've thought a lot about this, and the conclusion I've pretty much come to is that I've probably always been a libertarian. I just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
So, just as long as I've been alive, I feel like it was just a slow series of discovering things were illegal and then being like, why? That doesn't make sense.
Right.
I remember. So you said in my intro, you made a minor mistake, which you would not be the first one. I've actually never been to the state of Indiana. That's actually South India, the country in Asia. And so,
I apologize.
No, but this is actually, it's relevant to this. Okay. So when I was, quite young, I mean, I must've been about 5 or so. I was flying with my mom to India, where my family's from. I spent, about a third of my life at this point, would have been about a half when I was growing up. And flying, it's a really long flight. It's 2 really long flights. So I'm just like watching over all of this land that we're flying over. And And then I tell my mom, when I grow up, I want to be really rich so I can buy a lot of land, and me and my friends can start our own little country and have our own rules on it. And my mom told me, if you do that, the US government will come and kill you. She was not wrong.
It's so true.
But that was really, for me, like the first time that I'd even like considered this,
right?
That this was possibly a thing. And so pretty much from that point on, throughout my childhood, my teens, I just kept running into things where I was like, well, why can't you do that? That doesn't make any sense. You're not hurting anyone. You're not doing anything bad. Why would that be illegal? And so it actually got to the point, I was a weird little kid, clearly. I got to the point when I was maybe about 12, 13 years old, maybe about 12 years old, where I decided, okay, clearly I don't see a whole lot of people who think like me. I'm going to start reading all of this political theory. I'm going to put stuff together, and I'm going to put out my manifesto explaining to people why the government shouldn't be telling you to do all of this. So I started, I remember 12 years old, I read the Communist Manifesto. I was like, okay, cool. This seems like inspirational and great. And then I looked at what communism does, and I was like, never mind. This is terrible.
Yeah.
And it does not work. And so it's sort of a series of these things, to the point where I made myself a t-shirt when I was maybe like 14 or so, that it had a donkey and an elephant on it. And it said, when two rights make a wrong, because I was still on that sort of mindset where I thought of like the left-right spectrum as being like anarchist to authoritarian.
Right.
Now I'm very much like for the four-way chart, but at that point I'd never heard of it.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, clearly all these parties, they're way too authoritarian. This is a problem for me. And so things progressed. I spent a lot of time on the internet. I spent a lot of time like in these debates and stuff like that online. And when I was 15 years old, I was on a weed messaging board where most people are talking about cannabis, like the best bongs or whatever. But I found myself in a debate on this board where I was trying to explain to people, yes, I think absolutely cannabis and all drugs should be legal because it's your body, it's your right. The government should not be involved. This is nonviolent. However, I am concerned about what regulation and taxation will look like in a legal regime. And someone was like, hey, you sound like a libertarian. And I was like, I don't know what that is.
Yep.
And so long story short, they sent me the 4-way political quiz. I took it. It told me I was a libertarian. I Googled that and I found a bunch of websites. I actually found the Cato Institute website at first, looked at it, was like, oh my God, these people agree with me.
Right.
This is the first time in my life that I find people who are saying all these things that I keep trying to tell people that no one seems to agree on.
Right.
It's like, I think I'm a libertarian. And so that was it for me. Like, I definitely was a libertarian. I know I very interested in these ideas and learning about this stuff. So as I've continued, I think I've like moved farther right on the economic scale as I've kind of like studied a little bit more about economics and things like that, but very much very far bottom for a long time. And so, so I've registered Democratic, I've registered Republican, I've registered other various third parties, depending on a specific election I wanted to vote in.
Yep.
But, as far as like my beliefs, I'm absolutely a libertarian voter. I'm very hopeful for the fact that I think increasingly with the internet, with awesome shows like this one, people are starting to see that there are options outside of these like two parties that are essentially the same party that are all working against you, the individual.
Yeah. And we're seeing a lot of that kind of permeate through with the Biden campaign. I mean, I want to do too much just shitting on that the current administration.
I'll shit on both sides. It's all good.
I mean, it's just you're seeing a lot of the same stuff that a lot of people were complaining about with Donald Trump. So it's
literally like what, just yesterday the news came out about the eminent domain along the border in order to build the wall, right? That case was opened up under Trump.
Yep.
Just finished. Guess what Biden's doing? There's this whole, both parties benefit from this idea that they're sort of, that they're diametrically opposed. And really, at the end of the day, they're really similar. There's minuscule differences, but mostly it's marketing.
Yeah, exactly. I think they both have, I think the Republicans are mastered it a little earlier on with the marketing and really kind of push things. And then the Democrats figured it out. And now it's just, now they almost work together to just figure out which side of the thing they want to be on in the marketing. And then they just vote completely opposite. I mean, it's insane. I have a hard time. I voted Democrat a while. I came in from basically Obama turned me into a libertarian. Like I was the anti-war, pro-immigration, and I thought that was what Obama had stood for because I really only paid attention to some populist politics, I guess, at that point.
I voted for President Obama in 2008. I was not an enthusiastic voter at all. Actually, I went into the ballot box not planning on voting for president at all. I was living in Berkeley at the time, California, and I wanted to vote on Measure JJ, which made cannabis a lowest priority for law enforcement, along with some other measures. But I'd been working on the Measure JJ campaign a little bit and a couple things like that. So I went in to do the issue politics voting, stuff that was like, okay, this is definitely for freedom.
Yep.
Didn't really like Obama. He seemed like a statist to me. They all seem like statists to me, but they all are. But like, I voted my whole ballot. And then I was just sitting there for about half an hour, and it just kept resonating in my head, something that McCain had said right before, like in the weeks leading up to the election, about how we would stay in Afghanistan for 100 years. And I was just like, I can't vote for that. Like that. So McCain is the one who convinced me with that one line to vote for Obama. I otherwise would not have. And of course, it's not like, of course, we're still there. We're supposedly pulling out now, but somehow I've heard that before.
Yeah. And I mean, the funny thing is a lot of Democrats are celebrating Biden saying this. And in reality, he actually pushed out what Donald Trump had supposedly negotiated in May, whatever. And then it was, pushed down to September. So, and that those troops are not going to be going home, taking off their uniforms. They're going somewhere else to be doing the same thing. There's no way. Like if we move them, it's just going to be a game of risk. Right. Yeah, and it's awful. And I think I'm with you. I feel optimistic. I feel like there is a bit of a breaking point that people are getting with continuing to see policy that they don't agree, especially in the criminal justice space. I think that is where we can work with every single person who doesn't agree with the police state that we currently have.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Republicans on that side. I know Democrats on that side. I know Greens on that. I know people in every single party who do not believe in the current state of affairs as far as our criminal justice system. So I think
the only people who believe in our current criminal justice system are either part of our current criminal justice system or just have no idea how it works.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like there was a part of, not long ago, I was probably in the ignorant, bucket there. It takes a bit to engage. And right now politics feels so toxic that I think a lot of people just kind of push it out of their mind as well. And feel, almost blissfully ignorant at the time. But when they're seeing people, innocent people that are getting killed, on video, on social media, I feel like that's jarring enough to stop people from the inaction to really, start to try and at least support local things happening at different levels and stuff.
Yeah, I hope so. And we've seen that. We've seen a couple qualified immunity bills starting to go through at the local level, at the state level for the first time ever. When Cato Institute for Justice were talking about this issue 3-4 years ago, they were literally the only ones. Right. And everyone was like, what is this weird wonky thing you want to talk about? Right. And now all of a sudden, Ben and Jerry's ice cream wants to abolish qualified immunity. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that I actually was introduced this on a Feminists for Liberty thing, and I really appreciate how welcoming the message is and how approachable and tangible and digestible, I guess the message is consent culture.
We try.
Yeah, no, I think it's really great. Like the consent culture thing really struck me. I mean, I got the concept at a certain level, but it never fully clicked until I think I watched either a panel or one of the videos that you had done.
We did a panel discussion as part of the International Day of Consent, which is actually a sort of more left wing for the most part festival, but we did a panel for that on libertarianism as consent culture.
Yep. Yeah, and that was wonderful. I think, I guess if you can boil it down into a quick, we only have a certain amount of time, but like if you can give a little bit of that to our listeners just so they can hear, because I think it's wonderful. Like I said, it's just such a beautiful way to package a very complex concept into, I'm not saying it's all encompassing, but it is significant in how much it does, I guess, encompass as far as kind of libertarian ideals and stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. So credit where it's due. I will say that I first heard that phrase from Ovens O'Brien, who's actually now on our Feminists for Liberty board. She's awesome. Speaking at Pork Fest several years ago, my first time going to Pork Fest, and I heard her say that, and I was just like, yes, actually, that's exactly what it is, right? Because the entire central driving, motivating force behind probably could have picked a better word, behind libertarianism is this idea of consent. It's this idea that whatever you want to do, provided you're not using force or coercion to get someone else to do it, right? And so, we love that phrase, both because it makes libertarianism so much more appealing and really boils it down to what it's about and what we're talking about when we talk about liberty to audiences that are sold into consent culture, who are open to these ideas of, okay, yes, consent matters, consent is mandatory, which it is and should be.
Yep.
But it also, I think, part of that is also that it pushes back against, there's certain strains within libertarianism who really, I don't even think that a lot of times they're that libertarian. They're just more sort of like edgelords who want to, they want to be out there and they want to, fight the culture war against the left or whatever. And so they just immediately push back against these ideas of things like consent culture. And so we're kind of like Feminists for Liberty. We're sort of in this in-between place. We're very much just like mainline libertarians with libertarian values, and we want to talk to the world about them, and we want to explain to people essentially why, one, these libertarian approaches are better oftentimes, usually, I would say always, than government approaches for the types of things they want to do, but two, we also want to, get into those spaces and be talking about these ideas in a way that for a very long time, a lot of libertarians just ignored those spaces and ceded them to people who are motivated to use government to try to fix problems. And, so we're sort of trying to combat both of those at once, both dealing with the fact that a lot of people, when they think libertarian, they are thinking they're thinking of someone who's bigoted and terrible and hateful and, just like the worst troll on the internet, right? Which is not what we want. We want people to love these ideas, because honestly, I think most people, when you really dig down there, when you really talk to them about what they care about, they do believe that people should be free, and they do believe that people should be able to live how they want to live. And they do think that it's important for people to live without force and without people making them do something that they don't want to do, and without hurting each other. And, that's what it really boils down to.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. And I think that helps helps a lot of people who, and I struggled with this kind of early on as well. I do believe in kind of radical anarchism. I believe I'm very, very low on the, authoritarian scale.
I'm right at the bottom there too, probably a little bit more to the right than you, but yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like, how do we can't explain to people what we want at the end, because that is very hypothetical, it's very theoretical at this point, and it is so far off from what we have today that people are just going to tune you out. I mean, like, how would that?
One, you sound crazy First off, especially if you just start there,
Yep.
you sound crazy without any sort of groundwork. And two, we're never going to get there if you're refusing to work on all the stuff that's actually happening to make all of these little changes that will move the ball in that direction.
Right.
Because there's not going to be a time where tomorrow you get to say, like, cool, should we abolish the state? Yes. Okay, everyone agrees. That's never going to happen.
No.
Right.
And being able to say, do you believe in consent culture? And do you like that is such an approachable thing. That's something that someone could, kind of process in a pretty short amount of time and think, yeah, why shouldn't it be a kind of a mutual contract between two people, even if it's not a legal, just a verbal contract, let's say, between two people to do something that they want to do moving forward. Right. Like that is something that is should be so universal. I understand that people have some, things that they're really, really specific about that they want to push with state power,
Right.
but if you just approach it in that way, at least you don't sound like that crazy radical, you know what I mean? Like you sound so much more approachable and like, hey, you're really just trying to look out for the individual, for every single person, no matter what group they might associate with. You're looking out for them so that they can do anything as long as they're not hurting people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the benefits, one of the things I really like about being a libertarian is that you can, one, I believe that most people, the vast, vast majority of people on earth want to build a better world. They're not going out in the morning and saying like, how can I make this place way worse to live in? Right. They want everything to be better for everyone. They just maybe have some different ideas of how to get there. So I think if you start from that place and try to understand like why they want the things that they do and what that thought process is for how that will make things better, that's helpful. Yeah. And then the other thing is that as libertarians, we can pretty much find something to agree on with just about anybody, right?
Yeah.
And so, like I mentioned before, I'm not a big fan of allying myself with a specific party. I like to sort of jump around. I mean, I do often vote libertarian, but not always. Yeah. And I don't care about the party politics. I don't like that kind of tribalism. What I like is specific ideas, specific changes, like issue campaigns or things that we can actually change. And I think meeting people where they are, whether that's through things like changing laws or even through things like you did a lot of stuff on mutual aid. I think that we can do a lot that way. And I think we can do it both just by actually helping people and also by demonstrating, hey, this is how the world should work.
Right.
Because if we're out here saying we don't need a state and then we're not doing any of the things that people think that the state is doing that's positive for them, they're just like, oh, so you just want the world to be terrible? Is that what you want? No, of course not. Right. We don't need a state. And here's why we don't need a state, because we can ourselves make sure that we're not using force against other people. We can ourselves make sure we're helping other more vulnerable people. We can ourselves demonstrate what a world would look like if we didn't have the state coming in and doing things like pouring bleach all over food someone tries to give to the homeless, or, tearing down homeless encampments, or, locking up kids at the border. Like that's how state charity works. And just making that really clear to people that like, yeah, I think these things are bad too. I also want to fix them. Right. And that's not how you do it.
Yeah. And I mean, showing example, I mean, it's wonderful to hear this because I on a lot of shows have said, if you're running, I talk with candidates, here and there as well. And I say, if you're running on volunteerism and mutual aid, and that's what will fill the vacuum of social safety nets or whatever, you best be out there volunteering and working on some of those mutual aid projects, or you're going to sound like another politician. Like if people
someone will do it, not me, but someone will do it. Yeah.
If people don't see you in your community doing those things, they're not going to believe you when you say it's going to work that way. And I think, my perfect kind of goal, kind of step to get there is I'd love to see a mutual aid shop, or, I actually saw in Massachusetts, the North Shore, they're opening up what they're calling a mutual aid free store. And basically it's take as you need and donate as you need. And I would love to see those types of programs open up and actually directly in the market compete with state sponsored social safety nets, because I know for a fact getting onto or dealing with Medicare or getting onto unemployment or anything like that is not an easy process. And being able to work with those in your community to do something like that instead of having to work
Mhm.
through the state and like all this red tape would be such a more positive experience for people that would be the winner. Like the market would show that would be the winner and people would go to that naturally, and we could use it as, hey, this works locally here, let's try and expand it to a major city, let's try and expand it to whatever. And yeah, I that's kind of, it's great to hear some of the thoughts that I have as well kind of echoed back. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just marketing. I mean, I honestly believe that kind of individual one-on-one thing, living your values, that's what this is about, right? Like, yeah, it's great marketing, and if we're not doing it, then what are you really selling people, right? But
Right.
it's also like, if that's the world we want, that's the world that we should be building ourselves.
Yes. Yeah, and we shouldn't be waiting for the state to do so. I mean, we're supposedly running
Yeah,
in antithesis of the state or whatever. We shouldn't be waiting for that to happen, or we should, if there's a law in the way, we should be really lobbying and forming groups and stuff to fight that law that's blocking whatever thing we want to start or do. That's where I think if more folks had those kind of efforts, the electoral politics part would just come along with it. I think it would just happen naturally. And I'm not against electoral politics either. I try and help. I'm on campaigns and stuff, but
sure. Yeah, no, same. I mean, I'm an anarchist too, and I have absolutely worked on campaigns. I've already talked about voting. Like, I do this stuff.
right. But yeah, I'm with you. I think, we need to be that example.
Absolutely. Be the change you wish to see.
Exactly. So, we've been talking about this wonderful group, Feminists for Liberty. How did you work to start it, and kind of what sparked that? I guess what was the part that said this is the good idea that I need to run with? This is
Yeah, cool. So we actually have a video on our YouTube channel that'll go more into detail on this, but I will give you the Spark Notes version. Basically, back in 2016, Elizabeth Nolan Brown, who some of your viewers might know, she's one of the editors over at Reason Magazine. She and I were talking, and we were talking about the primaries had just started for 2016. We're looking at the field. And we were talking about the fact that Hillary Clinton looked like she was likely maybe going to be the front runner. I think she just recently announced, this was right at the beginning of 2016.
Yep.
And so we were talking about how it seemed likely that we were going to start hearing these pushes for, like, if you're a woman, you have to vote for Hillary. And, we're both feminists. And so we very much believe in this individualist feminist tradition of no, the point of feminism is that women are not this conglomerate who all think the same, do the same, are the exact same thing that you can just sort of plug and play in society, right? Like, we are individuals, and this idea is the antithesis of that. And then, of course, like, once you get Donald Trump on the Republican side, there's a whole other variety of feminist problems with his candidacy.
Yeah.
But so we were really thinking about Hillary Clinton and the likelihood that she would end up being the front runner at this point. And then at the same time, there was also this like really venomous strain of what I called, I want to call like edgelord politics. It's sort of the rise of the alt-right that was happening around that time, had been for the last couple of years. Just increasingly you were hearing people who supposedly were libertarian in these libertarian spheres adopting a phrase that was coined by Milo Yiannopoulos, who, by the way, repeatedly said he wasn't libertarian, and people keep trying to argue that he's libertarian.
Right.
Especially they did at the time, feminism is cancer. And we're like, that's ridiculous. First off, not true. Secondly, like, feminism is a very libertarian idea. And, the Libertarian Party itself started with many libertarian ideas. One of the co-founders of the Libertarian Party, Toni Nathan, was the first woman to win an electoral college vote. She, as soon as that campaign wrapped up, she started the Association of Libertarian Feminists. I mean, like, the modern liberty movement itself was started largely by three women, Isabel Patterson, Ayn Rand, and Rose Wilder Lane, who were themselves bucking against the patriarchy as well as the state. Those were the two main things that they were pushing back in their own lives. So feminism is very much a part of libertarianism. And so we were looking at these two things and we're like, okay, so, and then you also had these like feminism itself was getting increasingly carceral and championing women like Kamala Harris, who of course is now vice president several years later. And so we were looking at these trends and we're like, okay, we need to find a way to bring back this message that one, libertarianism is feminist fundamentally. Like these ideas, these are not the antithesis of each other. They fit together. We want more feminist ideas in our space. We want to be addressing these issues. And also we want to be in those feminist spaces, pushing back against these sort of pro-state carceral type solutions to these problems that we see as well, and that we think are actually worsened by government. And so that was back in 2016. We've done a bunch of things since then. Some of our early things, I think in early 2017, we attended the Women's March, which we got so many people who were like, you can't go to the Women's March. They're not going to let you be there. They'll be so angry. And it's like, no, we're going. We went dressed as suffragettes. The suffragettes used to wear these ribbons that said suffragette on them. So we went dressed as suffragettes with ribbons that said libertarian on them, had a bunch of libertarian feminist type signs, messages, things like that. And overwhelmingly, people kept coming up to us and being like, hey, I thought libertarians hated women, or hey, I didn't know you could be a woman and be a libertarian. And so we were just talking to people about libertarianism, about libertarian solutions to a lot of the problems that the people in that crowd cared about, whether it's stuff like sex work or whether it's stuff like ending the wage gap, which kind of gets really misrepresented by both the left and the right, to be honest, or all of these kinds of issues. And so got a lot of media out of that, started doing these salons and socials in DC, these sort of like flash talk events, where it's like we'd invite people to do flash talks at a bar, have some drink specials, that kind of thing. And we were getting folks who were definitely libertarians, but we were also getting a lot of folks who were just curious and just wanted to come out and talk and stuff like that. And we legally incorporated in 2018. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so you can donate to us. That's how we do all of the stuff that we do. So please do, and write it off on your taxes. And I will tell you, as an anarchist, I never thought I would spend so much of my life filling out government paperwork. But so 2018, we did that, and we've been growing since then. We've got a bunch of different stuff. Liz and I recently launched a YouTube channel at the beginning of this year, where we just started a new show called Cat and Liz Talk About, which are these sort of like bite-sized conversations between the two of us on various issues from a libertarian feminist perspective, whether it's just explaining libertarian feminism, or we did one on sex and gender, we did one on capitalism and how markets empower women. So we have a bunch of these types of things. We're actually right now, we're running our second annual video contest. We did it last year, mainly because at first we had a bunch of ideas and things planned for the year. Then COVID struck and we're like, okay, cool. So we can't do stuff in person. What'll we do? People are at home. Maybe they can do something. Cool. Let's ask folks to send us videos. And they can be simple videos, short videos, 2 minutes to 7 minutes. Shoot it on your computer, shoot it on your phone. If you have equipment and you have video skills, send us a really awesome video with all of those skills too. But honestly, we just want to see what you'll do. And we got a bunch of cool videos. We decided it wouldn't be fair if we judged it ourselves. So we got a panel of various judges from the libertarian video world, people like Terry Kibbe of Free the People, and Remy, who does the Go Remy videos, and Reason TV, and a bunch of other people like that. And we got so many cool videos. We really liked it. We did a video festival via Zoom. And this year we're doing it again, except we're going to be hosting the video festival at Freedom Fest, and give prizes of up to $500 of equipment or whatever you need to get your message out. So I will say, if you're watching this, go check it out at our website, feministforliberty.com. The deadline's May 1st. And you don't have to be good at video. You just have to have good ideas. Just tell us what you think libertarian feminism looks like in 2021. But yeah, that's actually the videos that we got out of that first video contest. They were just incredible and so interesting. And like, I learned so much. I told you, I hang out on the internet all the time. I'm interested in these ideas. I'm really nerdy. So like, I read all this stuff, and I feel like people touched on stuff that I had never considered. Like our second prize winner made a video about Amerasians in the Philippines, and she talked about these sex workers that the U.S. military paid Filipina sex workers to work essentially as contractors for the military. And then they left the Philippines, and then there's all of these issues with these kids who are the children of U.S. citizens, do not have U.S. citizenship, were sort of like kicked out of their communities in the Philippines, all sorts of like really interesting stuff that I'd never even heard of. Like, so a lot of fascinating things like that. And that's actually just watching those videos. We'd been talking about doing our own video series forever. And we're like, okay, we asked all these people, like just came at us with these ideas. They just shot it on their computers. Like, we keep going back to, but we don't have equipment. We don't know how to do this right. And like, they called our bluff. We're going to start this. And that's how we started Cat and Liz.
That's perfect. No, and it's great. I think, probably a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I stumbled upon my first Cat and Liz talk about, and I watched the capitalism and the gender one. I watched both of those, sex and gender. Yeah, those are really great. No, I like I said, I really like a lot of the content you all produce there, and I put the link, just as a heads up, I put the link in the comments for the video contest. So if you're listening and you want to enter, go to that link and check it out. And also I will put in, the Feminists for Liberty links as well to help donate.
Please. But send us your videos. Like, I just want to see them, honestly. And like, there'll be a lot of cool judges checking them out. We might show them at Freedom Fest, and you might win a lot of cool prizes.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. No, and I think, it's just such a, I want to touch on a couple of points you made there in the kind of the forming of Feminists for Liberty as well. I mean, when I kind of found libertarianism and kind of went to go check out some of the spaces, it was just a lot of, edgelord type stuff and some hateful stuff. And I really, I actually believe now at this point that libertarianism is the most compassionate kind of political party that there is. I think, just the consent culture piece and not using force for anything, that we're trying
Absolutely. No, I say it all the time. I'm a libertarian because I care about how the state hurts people.
Yeah. And I think that's it's such a welcoming message, but like you said, like people are trying to go out there every day and trying to make the world better. So it's like it's a road to get there. You know what I mean? I feel like it's just such a good way of bringing people in. And I think that especially, like I said, the content that I've seen in Feminists for Liberty and stuff, I think helps allow, it's almost that soft place to land. We always talk about soft place to land in a few of these episodes. It's really hard to find a good soft place to land for libertarianism in general. If you go to libertarian Twitter, it's toxic, all over the place. If you go to different groups, there's a few really loud voices that are usually most of the issue.
And those are the people who get the stage. And at the end of the day, what change are they making? They're going out there, they're saying these usually terrible things. I'm not really sure what they're actually doing for the community. I'm not sure what laws they're changing. If anything, I feel like most of the time they're just chasing people away from libertarianism. And like I said, I've been around this movement for a while. And a lot of times I think that those radical ideas. I love a lot of those radical ideas.
Yep.
You don't start with that, right? Like two of my friends, they made this video a very long time ago, Kathy Reisenwitz and Marianne Copenhaver, who used to be that libertarian girl on YouTube. So they made this video. This must have been like 2011 or 2012, but I still cite it all the time because I love it. And it's like, I can't remember the name of it, but it's something like how not to talk about libertarianism. And it's them like going door to door and knocking on people's doors and being like, have you read Hayek?
Yeah, it's very difficult to, I mean, and it's something that a lot of libertarians feel so passionately about. I personally like discussing economics with people. I like,
yes, absolutely. I care about it a lot, but like so many times people are interested in, like, that door is open or at least cracked, and they would listen to you, but they're not going to if, one, you tell them like, read these 800-page books and then come back to me. They're not going to listen to you if you approach them with this attitude, this like holier than thou start attitude. And they're absolutely not going to listen to you if you try to come up with like the craziest, edgiest possible spin on this and make it sound like this radical idea that no one could possibly be into, right?
Right. Yeah, and it's a interesting, I love, like, again, radical ideals. I love even some radical ways of getting attention and getting, but having that message be of kindness, of compassion. So like, Vermin Supreme Institute, where I'm part of the Vermin Supreme Institute. I know I've been to Vermin's house. I know Vermin Supreme very well. He has a very different way of coming at things than most. And it's very radical.
True. I can safely say I've never worn a boot on my head.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, he's talking about compassion and love and helping people with mutual aid. And I mean, he's also talking about toothbrushing laws and fun stuff like that. But at the end of the day, he's using humor and something that is so approachable. And it's funny because I talked to a ton of, there's the different kind of groups in the party and stuff. There's radicals and prags and all that stuff. And I talk to a lot of pragmatic people, and they say, how do how is this a pragmatic approach? And I say, just the comedy aspect of it will bring in so many people just off the bat. And yes, there's a certain group of people that might push away a little bit. But if you can get through to a message that he's been saying, it is just such a wonderful thing. And there's the ability to be not edgelordy, but having some spin on it without being so non-approachable.
So I think that there's something to that, because I will tell you, I am one of those people who, like, I do not love the Vermin Supreme branding. I just don't. Like, for me, I'm just like, no, you're making it a joke. Why does it have to be a joke? However, he follows it up with all of this like actual like interesting, compassionate mutualism, which like, I have a lot of respect for that. I have a lot of respect for, it's not just the joke. It's not just the platform. There is actually something happening behind that is quite beneficial, I think.
Yeah. And it's a different, definitely. I mean, it's funny. Me and my wife talk about this a lot. My wife has the exact same opinion on that. She's like, it's a little tough. She's like, I don't know if I could fully get on board with that, because it is so kind of zany and stuff. And I'm like, that's fine. I think especially this movement as a total, as a bigger, larger movement, is going to need a lot of different voices that do impact and kind of hit a lot of different groups of people. And, I think the more the merrier, as long as it's a compassionate and welcoming message and not something that is actively trying to push people away. You know what I mean?
Well, I think what matters at the end of it is, does your libertarianism, so like, here's what I always view as, like, I know we talk about like libertarian purity tests and that kind of deal. And like, most of the time, in most cases, I would say I'm not a big purity test person. Maybe at the bar after a few drinks, I might have some opinions, but in general, right? As long as on a particular issue, you want to make things better for people and reduce the role of the state, I will work with you on it, right? Yeah. But I think if there is a purity test about whether or not you're a libertarian, this is what I would make it. It would be essentially, do you hate the state because the state hurts people? Or do you hate the state because the state won't let you hurt people? Those, I think, are two very different things, and that's what really matters.
Ooh, I've never heard that, and that kind of blew my mind a little bit. I like that a lot. Yeah, that's really, and I've always tried to draw that line because it's like, no matter what you say, you can be putting off. I'm sure I put off people when I try and partner with progressive Dems. I'm sure that puts off some groups of libertarians.
I mean, I go around calling myself a feminist. I can tell you, based on my inbox, it does not make a lot of people very happy.
So it's not whether or not you're pushing people out. Like there was always so hard to, like, how do you define it then? Like, you're not, at some point, no matter what you say, you're going to push some group of people away, some subset of people. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to that. Are you trying to do it so that you can hurt people, or are you trying to do it because the state is hurting people? And that's, I really like that. That's really wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think what you're saying about different approaches is really important, right? Like, we are individualists. We are people who believe fundamentally that people are very different and that different people need different things. There is not a one size fits all solution for everything. And so, like, obviously what's going to appeal to you or to me or to, I don't know, the guy who runs the Chinese food place across the street from me, to be very different things, right? We don't want to have one TV station. We don't want to have one type of deodorant. We don't want to have, only one vodka in the state store. Right. And this is no different than that. There's different approaches, different packages, but what really matters is if at the core of that, it's actual liberty and liberty for everybody.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's the way that we kind of get to just a better place. And like you said, just trying to work with people who want to make the world a better place. And if we can start doing that while, removing state power, I think most individuals want that. It's really hard unless they're a politician or someone trying to gain a lot of power very quickly. Most people want that. I mean, it might look differently, and you can't just go about it and say, like, the government can't do this, but like,
I go back and forth on this, right? It depends on how optimistic I'm feeling that day, but I think you're right for the most part. I think most people really are at least somewhat libertarian. They may not call themselves libertarian. They may have very negative views about libertarianism, but at the end of the day, most people want most people to be able to live how they want to live. There are exceptions. Those exceptions usually come to, okay, when it benefits their personal interests, and lots of libertarians fall into this trap too, right? Like, if it benefits your personal interests, there is a strong motivation sometimes to use the state to do something.
Right.
I think that's a problem, but like, that happens, and that happens with everybody.
Right.
And then secondly, it's just like we talked about, it's this idea of packaging it as libertarianism or packaging it as the state, or what those words mean to people. And like, that's what they're talking about. When people hear things like anarchy, for instance, they're thinking that you're talking about bombs going off in the streets, and they do not want that, because most people, like probably 99% of the world, does not want that. That's not what they're not hoping to live in a world of constant fighting and terrible things.
Right.
And so, like, it's up to us as people who believe in and care about these things to demonstrate that, no, that's not what we mean. And we can do something together that's really great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're going up against that kind of large machine of marketing that has done such a good job pushing the bomb thrower anarchy. And we need, you hear in the last, and I've seen the System is Down group has put out a few videos. They put out some videos for the Joe Jorgensen campaign with Spike Cohen as well. He did a couple on Biden and Trump using anarchy in the absolute wrong way. And it was really like eye-opening to see, like, this is intentional. This is not unintentional. Like, they are trying to do this to give anarchists this bomb thrower, stereotype.
Right. I mean, I definitely think there's a part of that. And I think it's also just like, we grow up in this world where, for the most part, people are taught from a very young age that the government is there to help them. And like most people believe it in most time. And then people are actually like radically surprised when they find out stuff. Like, for instance, we talked about qualified immunity earlier.
Yep.
People find out stuff like, oh, not only are police actually not held to to a higher standard than other people, they're actually not even held to the same legal standard as other people. The Supreme Court has essentially said that police can knowingly violate your rights and get away with it, and that's perfectly fine. You know, and things that you or I would never in a million years be able to do, they can do, right? And I think that like blows people's minds. I think there's a lot of things like that out there that just like they don't know that that's what's happening. And honestly, there's this idea of rational ignorance, right? Like you cannot expect people to know every single little thing, every little policy. There's like millions of laws and policies and regulations on the book. And if you were spending all your time doing that, one, you'd probably go insane. And two, like you would do nothing else with your life.
Right. Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, you know, especially, you know, now people are working multiple jobs and trying to make ends meet. Being able to actually go and do the research for all that stuff as well is very, very difficult. No, it's something that I think the education and the approach needs to be refined a bit. And I think, you know, I think it's going to be done at an individual level. Like I know there's a big effort to try and get like the national party to run messaging like this and things like that. But I think it's going to take a lot of really good voices of people in the movement, just trying to share that with the 10 people they know and just continuing to do that more and more.
And there's a lot to that too, right? Like I do a lot of stuff in digital. I know you do as well. The vast majority of people get their news from Facebook. You know, people trust the people that they already care about. They don't trust some news source. They might trust a news source because that news source has become part of that people that they care about type thing. But in general, no, people don't believe the media. They don't believe these things. You know what they do believe? They believe Joe from down the street who they've been friends with for 10 years. And yeah, maybe they don't always agree on things, but they know Joe's a good guy. They know that Joe helps them out. That Joe shoveled their walk for them last week when they twisted their ankle. They like Joe, they trust Joe, and Joe's now coming up to them and talking to them about something that they didn't know about before. And they're like, huh, cool. That's interesting. I'm going to be open to that idea because like, I like Joe. Joe seems like a good guy. Joe seems like he wants a good world. Like if he cares about this, maybe I should care about it too.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like one of the things that I have really tried to do since getting sucked back into a lot of the libertarianism stuff and trying to talk through it is keep, you know, I talk to Spike Cohen a lot. He brings this up constantly. He's like, you need to keep normie friends. You need friends outside of, because if you just continue to talk about it in your group, that's all you're going to talk about when you meet someone new. And they're not going to listen because they're going to be like, whoa.
You are weird. And what are you talking? What is this nap thing? Why do you keep talking about naps? Do you have toddlers at home? What's going on? Yeah, totally. So I actually think so. Like, I love the internet. I've talked about the internet a lot in this very short period of time that we've talked to each other. And like, one of the things that I love most about the internet is it gives you this opportunity to see into so many new worlds that we were shut off from before. Not so long ago, it was, you know, people still to this day, the vast majority of people live within about 100 miles of where they were born their entire lives. And up until very recently, that was a very small circle. That was basically the only people you would ever get to meet in your life for most people. And so the internet gives you this opportunity to see all of these ideas, all of these things out there. And what's kind of sad to me is I think increasingly people are sort of bubbling into their own little niche circles where they're doing the same thing that they were doing previously, where they only talk to the people from their town and not that town, weirdo town that was right there 10 miles away from them, right? But they're doing that on the internet. What I actually like to do is I spend, don't get me wrong, I spend so much time reading libertarian stuff and all of that, but I don't just do that. Like, I actively seek out things that I dislike. I want to see the opinions I don't like. I want to see opinions of people who are not like me. I want to see what they're thinking. I want to see what language they're using. I want to see like what issues they care about. why they care about those things. And I think that that's really helpful. And, like, same thing with friendships. Like, I like cool people. I like interesting people. I certainly have a lot of libertarian friends. This is a circle that I've been in for a long time. This is something I care about a lot. I like to nerd out on this stuff. So like, I need those people in my life, but like, those aren't all my friends. I have friends from all different walks of life, doing all sorts of things from all 4 segments of the political chart. I will say, definitely skew more towards people on the bottom, but I have friends who are in those upper 2 things, and sometimes I think that they are so terribly wrong, offensively wrong, but like, they seem okay for the most part, and I want to know like why they think the way they do, and I'll push back on them. I'll tell them like, hey, that's a bad idea for X reason, or I'm not going to like change my mind about my views. But so many times people have told me, this is like one of the biggest compliments I receive, but people have told me so many times, one of 2 things. Either they'll tell me, I used to hate libertarians until I met you, or I used to think that I could never identify as a feminist until I met you. Oh, and so great. Like both of those things, like when I hear that, that's what I'm going for. That's like what I want to hear.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to hear it once or twice on the show, and it was magical. I mean, that's the goal.
That moment where you're like, yes, the harps are playing, the lights coming down.
Yeah, I mean, it's just people, people don't understand that there are just so many different. They think of libertarianism as this one big collective that believes one thing, that whatever the mass media is really put in their mind, or whatever their first experience was, or whatever. And in reality, there's just so many ways that people can apply those principles to, my major focus is much more on the social side and trying to help people as much as possible than it is on the economic side. I like the economics. I like talking about that with a lot of people, but if I'm going to put effort towards something, it is going to be tearing down some of the laws that are criminalizing sex work or drugs, or, things like that. And that's not the only thing that I do. That's not the only thing that I care about, but that's where I'm going to put my effort. And people just, that's awakening, I guess, to some people that brand of libertarianism is out there, and people feel that.
One of the things that drives me nuts, to be honest, is people all the time call me a left libertarian, and they call me that both as a compliment and as an insult, depending on where they fall on this thing. And I am not a left libertarian. I have no problem with left libertarians. Clearly have many left libertarian friends. I think they're wrong on certain things, but like, I'm like, if I'm like this far bottom right corner, right? But then people are like, oh, but you care about things like ending the drug war and immigration and, decriminalizing sex work, and you talk about feminism. Like, yeah, those are all just libertarian positions. That's just libertarianism. That's all that is. Like, if you want to talk to me about whether I think capitalism is valuable, or if I think that like certain market mechanisms are important or not, that's that left-right thing. And that's not what we're discussing right now.
Exactly. And I think, that has been so pushed, the left agenda, the right, and that's all that mass media talks about is really the left-right piece of it. And even like, I've seen, the major parties have pushed us further left or right. I've seen both, actually. Depending on
you hear it all the time, which like they are in certain ways. There is this radicalization happening, but like fundamentally, neither the Democrats nor the Republicans are ever going to be truly radical.
Right. And
they're both always going to be the party of big government.
Yep.
Neither of them has ever been the party of small government. The GOP might claim it, but they never have been.
Right. I mean, it's just, it's how, it's in what ways do they want to use the state against a certain subset? And it's really, that's the same thing on both sides. It's just, they have a different subset of folks that they want to use the state against. And
absolutely.
In some cases, it's the same.
And I think that matters too, right? Like this is just a very important idea in libertarianism as well, because we have this marketplace of ideas. And if you want to, you can believe something, you can have very strong opinions about how people maybe should live their lives or do something which may or may not be a truly libertarian opinion in and of itself. But what matters at the end of the day is, are you going to use your brain and your mouth to try to convince people that that is how they should live? Right. Or are you going to try to use force, either yourself using physical force, or are you going to outsource that force to the state to try and force people to live in that way? And I think that's the big major issue here.
Yeah. No, I can see that as well. That's an incredibly good point. And we're up against it, or we're past the time that
it's been fun for me, and I can talk forever.
Same here, and that's why I started the show. I love talking to folks, and no, this has been incredible. I really appreciate you coming on. I want to give you a chance to say, kind of promote anything that you want, or kind of end it and leave us with some parting words.
Absolutely. So as far as parting words go, I will just remind people, most people want the world to be a better place. And just keep that in mind when you're approaching people, and really try to live your values and show people why a freer world is a better world. And if you've liked listening to me, if you thought that any of these ideas were interesting, you can find me on Facebook or Twitter at Kat Murti. That's KATMURTI. And you can check out Feminists for Liberty at feministsforliberty.com. We're on Twitter as @feministliberty, and Feminists for Liberty on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And please, everybody who's watching this, I'm sure you all have some really interesting ideas. May 1st is the deadline for, that's not a joke, I promise. May 1st is the deadline for our film festival this year. We have a lot of great judges. It's really easy. You don't have to have a lot of technical skills. Just like grab your phone, grab your computer, something like that, and go talk to it for 2 to 7 minutes. Tell us some of your ideas, send it in. You could win up to $500 worth of whatever equipment you need to get your message out. So check it out.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And I did put the link to the video part in the comments. After the show, I'll go back in and put all your socials and the Feminist for Liberty stuff, so that's all there for people to get. And thank you again for coming on. I would love to have you on again. I'm taking a little bit of a summer break here after May until August, but in season 2, I'd love to have you back. This was wonderful.
Would love to. This has been so much fun for me.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you have a great night.
You too. Take care.
Thanks. So Kat Murti, that was wonderful. I really appreciate her work. I've followed the Feminists for Liberty for a few years now, and watched a lot of the video and different content that they've put out. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. I'm going to put in the comments all of the social media networks and stuff for both Feminists for Liberty and Kat. But also, if you have any ideas for that video contest, sounds really cool. I checked it out before the show, and it's awesome. There's a bunch of different prizes for video equipment and stuff to help get your message out to more folks like this. So I hope everyone enjoyed this. Next week, we have next week is so we're going to be doing the next show on Tuesday, April 20th. And Chrissy Wickers and I are going to be doing a cannabis episode. So we're going to be talking about cannabis legalization. We may consume some before during the show, and we'll be just having a good time talking to folks that like we have done, weeks past. So I hope everyone joins us next week. And then I want to kind of prep everyone. I'm going to be also doing a forum here soon. So we're just putting it together now, but we're going to be doing a forum on trans education. Right now, there are way too many anti-trans bills going into state legislation all across the country. We want to do what we can to help educate folks. We are going to have on medical professionals. We're going to have on folks in the community. We're going to have on folks that are really tied into state legislation, and really try to break down, what these bills are trying to do medically, how they're not helping anyone, and they're really targeting trans youth, which is just a second layer of awful. And just some general misnomers and misconceptions, and maybe some good ways to talk to folks in the trans community as well. So I hope everyone gets excited for that. That'll be probably in the next few weeks. We're going to have a couple meetings trying to get everything together for that, but I hope everyone tunes in for that as well. I will announce that on the page and everything when that comes to be, as far as the date and everything. But I hope everyone enjoyed tonight, and I hope to see you next week on the Post Political Podcast. Thanks.